Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the International Women's Day online webinar. Thank you for joining this evening. It's fantastic to see so many International Women's Day events happening across the country as well, in person, as well as the online webinar that we're holding tonight. If you can get to your local event, I know some happened last week, some are happening this weekend and next week. It'd be great if you can go along and support your local club as well. It's a fantastic way to connect with, meet other women in sailing and help build the strong and supportive community that we have across sailing. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the Boonwurrung people, part of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm meeting this evening, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their continuing connection to the waterways on which we all sail. For those who haven't met me, my name is Sue Phillips. I'm in the Participation and Grow team of Australian Sailing, working alongside Sarah Ogilvie, and where we work nationally to help grow participation, particularly for women and girls in sailing. The video you just watched is a small preview of a film that's being made at the moment in WA, and it's going to feature in our up-and-coming marketing campaign that we're going to run in the next few months. It will run on our social media channels as a campaign to try and get more women and girls into sailing, and would love you in your club and your class associations to help support the campaign and to share it on your social media channels as well. Tonight we have a fantastic lineup of speakers joining us this evening, and we're thrilled to have the wonderful Nick Douglas as well as our host again this year. For those who don't know Nick, she's a passionate sailor, a media host, marketing guru, storyteller, and last but not least, our SheSails ambassador. So it's great that we've got Nick again tonight. She does an incredible job showcasing the people and stories that make our sport so special. And to formally welcome you and open tonight's webinar, it's now my pleasure to hand over to Shevaun Bruland, who is the president of Australian Sailing, our first woman president. Shevaun was elected president in October 24 after 5 years on the board, including 2 years as vice president. Based in Adelaide, she's an experienced sailor across keel boats, sports boats and kite foiling. She has successfully completed in 3 Sydney to Hobart races, and for a number of years campaigned on her boat with her husband on numerous inshore and offshore races and regattas. She previously also served as president of Yachting South Australia. Based in Adelaide, she also enjoys kiteboarding and is a parent of 2 teenage daughters who both sail. And Shevaun is a passionate advocate for getting more women and girls, especially into sailing. Shevaun will now formally welcome, so I'll hand over to you, Shevaun.
Thank you, Sue. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us from your clubs or homes right across Australia to celebrate International Women's Day. As President of Australian Sailing and as the first woman to hold this role, it's an absolute privilege to welcome you to tonight's webinar. It is fantastic to see so many of our sailing communities coming together in support of greater equity and opportunity within our sport. We're currently at around 35% of women's participation in sailing. And while that does reflect important progress, we do know there's much more work to do if we are to achieve true equity and balance, which is the United Nations theme for this year's International Women's Day. The Australian Sailing Board has set a clear target of reaching 50% women participating in sailing by 2032. Importantly, we're also proud to have over 50% female representation on the Australian Sailing Board itself. That leadership balance matters, and it reflects our genuine commitment to change at every level of the sport. A key part of that commitment is the Sail Our Way government-funded program, which is focused on getting more women and girls into sailing. The program is helping us move the dial by raising visibility, reducing barriers, and creating more accessible and welcoming opportunities for women and girls to try sailing or improve their skills. In the first round alone of the Sail Our Way grant program, we funded more than 55 clubs and class associations to deliver women's and girls events and courses across Australia. I'm delighted to announce that a second round of Sail Our Way grant funding opened this week, and I look forward to seeing even more clubs and class associations using this Australian Sailing Grant program to fund initiatives supporting women and girls to get involved in sailing. So tonight, as Sue said, we have a great lineup of speakers. We will hear from a regional volunteer-run club in Victoria about how they used their Sail Our Way funding and the difference it's making at their club. And we'll also hear from inspiring speakers who are breaking down barriers at the elite level of our sport. We'll hear from Tash Bryant. Tash, my daughters and I are fans of the Bonds Flying Roos, and we've attended SailGP events in both Sydney and Perth. We've got Stacey Jackson. Stacey, Sophie and I followed your progress around the world with the Famous Project these past few months, and a massive congratulations to you and the team for the Jules Verne record. And I also can't wait to hear from Jessica Sweeney, whose career exemplifies the link between STEM and sailing, which is exactly what we're promoting in Australian schools with our Sail Lab curriculum. So if you haven't heard of that, I urge you to check it out. These ladies are setting world records. They're excelling on the international stage and forging successful careers in industries that surround sailing. Their stories remind us that the impact of sailing extends far beyond the water. Importantly, this work is not about taking anything away from male sailors. It's about creating opportunities for everyone. When women and girls thrive in sailing, our entire sport benefits. So thank you for being part of this important conversation. I hope that tonight's speakers leave you inspired, energised, and ready to continue driving change in your own clubs and class associations. So happy International Women's Day, everyone, and thank you for your commitment to a stronger, more inclusive future for Australian sailing. Back to I'll now hand over to you, Nick, to take it away with the speakers.
Thank you so much, Chev, and it's my absolute pleasure to host this International Women's Day event once again. And I'm not going to introduce myself. I think that's been done beautifully, and I think what Chev said is right on the money. Obviously, we're so lucky that it actually feels like we are getting a little bit of momentum. We've still got a long way to go, but we're lucky this evening to have an incredible group of women, starting with Stacey Jackson, who is a good friend of mine, among many, many things. She's a very talented sailor. She's done 17 Hobarts. She's a sail maker. She's always there and ready to go. And what many of you may not have followed at length, as Chev and myself followed recently, was the Jules Verne attempt, the Trophy Jules Verne, which is a non-stop, unassisted lap around the planet. And the Jules Verne Trophy was actually beaten just before the ladies arrived, but it was the first time ever that an all-female team has attempted this feat, which was absolutely insane. So we'll watch a little video about that attempt, and then we'll talk to Stacey herself.
Sur un maxi trimaran. J'arrive pas trop à réaliser, à vrai dire.
a little bit of a look at what was a lot longer than just a few seconds on a video, and I'm sure that Stacey will be on screen very, very shortly. There she is. And she's in almost as glamorous position as I myself am at the airport, ready to go on to her next adventure. Stacey, now, I know you've just done this latest attempt, but for those who don't know, I mean, I followed you at length. I'm a Stacey Jackson stalker. Sorry. How many laps of the planet have you done now?
Yeah, hi Nick, and hi everyone, and welcome to International Women's Day. Yeah, that was completing my third lap of the planet. So, but what was different and special about this one was, as you said, the Jules Verne is a non-stop lap. So whereas previously I'd done the Volvo Ocean Race, which is now called the Ocean Race, which is legs around the planet, but non-stop definitely changes it.
And for those who may not have followed, Alexia Barrier led the team with Dee Ghaffari, who I know you did your first lap with Team SCA. There are a few SCA people back on board, but I think this one, for those who don't realise, is so momentous because of the fact that an all-female crew have never managed to actually complete the attempt.
Yeah, exactly. So we were following the footsteps of Tracy Edwards and her crew from over 20 years ago, which was the first and only attempt of an all-female team in the Jules Verne. They got almost to Cape Horn, where they sadly got dismasted. So, you know, they felt like they'd done most of the hard work already and to not get around. So for us to have that chance to follow in their footsteps, though it took 20 years for it to happen again. And full credit to Alexia Barrier, our skipper, for all the hard work to persevere, to get the backing, the support, the boat, the crew together, and to actually get us to the start line. Because we had two goals for the Jules Verne. One was to make the start line and one was to finish. So you could call that a successful campaign.
It was interesting watching the videos and how it developed. And there was a lot of footage and a lot of ways to follow and get involved. And I think that's why so many of us did jump on the bandwagon. Mind you, I was involved before the start. But you guys making the start line, for those who haven't seen, I encourage them to go back and watch it, because that excitement that you had once you had crossed the line was huge, because there's so much that happens, as you mentioned, just a little bit of it, getting the funding, etc., before the start.
Yeah, exactly. And look, to be honest, I'd only been in the team for 1 month beforehand, where this was a almost 2-year campaign for Alexia to get the team together. So, you know, for me, I was fresh and I was the new level of excitement coming into the team. But for those ladies, it was a well-deserved achievement just to make the start line. Yeah,
indeed. And then I'm going to ask you a tricky question now, because the record was actually broken before you managed to finish. A men's crew, can we call them a men's crew or an open crew? There wasn't a girl on board, so I'll call them a men's crew, passed you and actually managed to knock the record off just before you guys got in. It doesn't make yours any less momentous, but I mean, when you look at the two campaigns, if you were to line them up next to each other, what did it look like?
Well, basically, we were drag racing down the F1 track, and we had the Daewoo, and they had the Ferrari, sort of thing. So, look, Daewoo were the team that broke the record, and that was the accumulation of a 20-year campaign for Thomas Campbell. He had attempted the Jules Verne 9 times already. So, you know, for us to get out there on our first attempt and successfully finish, we were one of 12 teams to ever finish, and we're the 6th fastest team now. And there's been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, you might have the stats better than I do, but I think there's at least 21 or something like that teams that have attempted the Jules Verne. So, you know, though our time wasn't the fastest, and if you did follow along, you might understand why. We had a few problems along the way with our boat, and that video showed us we finished with literally no mainsail left. If you look closely, if you rewatch it, you can actually see through the mainsail. There is a gaping big hole in the middle of it. So, you know, though it felt like perhaps, you know, they took the limelight off us, but we just decided they were just the warm-up band and we were the main event that finished the next day.
I think that's a great way to look at it. And I mean, from the headboard, I think was the first issue on the jib, and a lot of people perhaps didn't see those issues, but the poor little Daewoo did have a few problems, but you still managed to finish, which you literally brought to light that saying that I'm sure you've had in your head for all 17 Hobarts, to win first you have to finish. And to set that record. And the post that I posted was with you being number 6 on the board, because I was so proud to measure you against the guys as well, because I think it's 21 teams that have attempted. So to be 6th when you're an all-female team in a Daewoo is pretty epic.
Yeah, exactly, Nick. And look, and that was the goal, was to we've now set the bar. There is now a reference time for women sailing around the world non-stop in a crew. There's definitely been solo female sailors before us and two-handed sailors before us, but we're referring to crew, which means multiple of more than 2 and all female. So the cool thing is now that we've set that reference time, so we're putting the challenge out there. I want to see another women's team go out there and try and beat our time, and let's keep going until we are just beating the overall time and we are matching the experience of the guys who've been doing this for 20 plus years longer than we are.
Indeed, and that leads perfectly into my next question, which I'm thinking about it, and I'm sure there's other people thinking about it who maybe aren't as involved as us, but why is it important that you go out and just try and set a record to go around the world? I mean, why is that important?
Well, I think we've said it in the past, you've got to see it to be able to be it, sort of thing. So now, and that was a little bit of the idea behind the name of the Famous Project, was we wanted what we achieved to be famous, not so much ourselves, but we wanted to get out there, we wanted to set that record, and we wanted to bring the spotlight to women sailing offshore on these giant multi-hulls, like 100-foot trimaran. It's seriously cool sailing. And, if we can bring that to more attention and have more people interested in doing it and more women doing it. So when we finished, we had 8 female sailors on board. Previous to that, there's been 3 females who have finished the Jules Verne. So, we've turned 3 into 11, and, I'd like to see that be 20 to 30 to 50, and it just keeps going. So I think that's why it's important. It was awesome to be the first, but what's going to be the most important is it's not the last time that some women get to do that.
And if we're talking about it in perspective of this year's International Women's Day theme, which is all about balancing the scales, as Shev and Sue mentioned, that's incredibly important, because you're starting to tip it back just a little bit and maybe give a little girl at home the hope that she might be able to sail non-stop around the world unassisted and maybe beat the record overall.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with the way it is now, you can sit at home and you can watch this. As you said, there was great social media coverage of our record, and so hopefully it does open this up to little girls and boys. Like, we won't stop them from dreaming too.
Yeah,
but
100%.
So they can see that there's a whole nother discipline of sailing out there, and we challenge everyone to get involved and support it, or have a go yourselves.
Indeed. And hey, if we inspire one person from even tonight, I have no doubt that you inspired, I can't even count the amount of people that you will have inspired with what you achieved. But if you could go back to Stacey Jackson in, North Queensland, not North Queensland, but let's say Sunny Coast, when she was 6 or 7, and say, oh my gosh, it's possible for girls to actually complete this attempt, how different would your trajectory have been? Because you did it without that.
Absolutely. And I, back in the olden days when I was growing up, and there wasn't that it wasn't that easy to see what can be done now. And so I think that's what's amazing about the time of sailing that we're in now, is that you can see it, so you can dream to be it. And I'd love to think what I would have achieved if I had all that, access. We had to wait till the half an hour coverage of the 18-foot skiffs came on a Sunday afternoon to dream big about what we were going to achieve. So, I really do hope that from what we managed to do, and our social media all came out of one of our sailors. We didn't have an onboard reporter, so we were doubling up on all our jobs. And what we got to show, hopefully it's inspired some people out there.
I don't think it's a hope. It's definitely inspired some people. And as you say, not just women. definitely boys, but you've definitely inspired females, a few generations on from yourself that can go, this is pretty cool. So that's pretty special. And for any guys watching, we're really grateful you're here watching. This isn't a man-hated club. We are very grateful for all of your support, because there's no way that we would actually be where we are without the support of those who want to see us out there doing it and having the best time. But now I know you're heading home after a few little adventures in the past fortnight or so. You've been foiling on a rather close to our heart maxi around the harbour.
Yeah, the hardest thing is remembering the name change. Palm Beach 11 is.
So I called it a maxi.
Just finished another week preparing that. So we had, you might have seen, I'm sure you saw it on social media. Once again, we were able to see it. We had her 100-foot, it's announcement for a flight. We had a 100-foot maxi yacht foil assist down Sydney Harbour last week. If you didn't see it on social media, search Palm Beach 11 on Palm Beach 11 on Instagram, and there's some great videos there.
Yeah, insane. Well, good luck with everything that's coming up. I know you've got a big program with that, and I know you've got to jump on a flight as well. So if anybody's got any questions for Stacey, feel free to flick them to me and I can pass them on to Stacey, or you can find her on Instagram, though she's not the best at replying, so I can hound her for you.
I can actually hang around for a little while. Nick, my flight's a bit later now.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. She's going to hang around, so maybe we'll get some questions out of her later. Thank you so much, Stacey, for joining us. And going straight from Stacey, who is from regional area, just like myself. I'm from south of Sydney. She's from north of Brizzy. We have Mandy Buchholtz on the line, and she's going to talk about the incredible Sail Our Way program that happened at Cairn Curran, which is close to Bendigo on a lake. So we're going to watch a little video that was collected thanks to Meg from Australian Sailing in Victoria about getting some more people out on the water at Cairn Curran Sailing Club, which is super exciting, and we'll talk to her in just a second. And that was a little bit of a look at what Mandy and the team at Cairn Curran got up to the other day. Mandy, I'm so happy that you have managed to join us because I got so excited when I heard that this was happening in a rural area and you're going to have so many people out on the lake having a burn or just getting introduced to sailing. I find that lakes are such a great place to introduce people because there's, it's a less threatening environment, and I know that watching the videos, that's what it seemed to be like. So the significance of the Sail Our Way program, how has that helped you to be able to hold this event and to introduce so many people to sailing?
Look, this event is basically funded obviously by health and aged care and also by Australian Sailing, and I think this opportunity has allowed us to put in regional clubs, organising an event where we're encouraging women and girls. We've had so little women and girls attend over the time that I've been at the club. So having this grant has created an opportunity where we could extend the invitation and it really be supported by all of our volunteers who are day in and day out going out and putting their grit on volunteering weekend after weekend. So they were really supportive of this event, which was fantastic. And it meant we could have ages from 75 all the way to 9 attend the event of, all abilities, all ages. And none of the women and girls that turned up had sailed before, or they maybe tried it a long time ago. So this opportunity has allowed that to happen.
That's so exciting. And Mandy, I know that you've sailed your entire life. I think you're similar to me. You don't remember when you didn't sail. So it's pretty special when you see somebody finding that for the first time, and especially when you're in a regional area and you see people perhaps experiencing something they thought they would never actually be involved with.
Yeah, correct. And I think even for my daughter, who I've tried to get to the club quite often, and there might be a day where there's strong winds or blue-green algae, and it's a real slog just trying to get my 12-year-old to the club. So this opportunity then allowed all of her friends to turn up and encourage her. And she basically said it was one of the best days. She grabbed a sabo and was out on the water. For me, I'm very used to understanding what sailing's all about and that uncertainty on the water, and just having a go, I suppose. But this was an opportunity that all women could get together, and they just felt comfortable and inclusive and safe in that environment. And it was just really good to see that those that were not confident were able to get out on the water.
So fantastic. And for those who are watching, who are maybe thinking about putting in an application for round 2, which is now open, what worked? Firstly, what worked? What didn't work? And what would you say to encourage them to actually get them to push go and say, actually, I could do with some help?
Look, being a regional club and looking at the resources on the SheSails, it's really hard to organise an event when it is male dominated at the club. There is a high percentage of men in there, and it feels like a man's shed in some ways. So you've really got to create safety for women. So one of the things that I did do was create a day where we just got on a canoe, and then we had a meeting and we all caught up and said, well, what does sailing look like to you? And the SheSails resources do really share what sailing for women can look like. I'm quite competitive. I'd love to be able to be on the water and learn and get more experienced in racing against the blokes. But for the women, they said we want to sail on a Sunday, we want a social event, and we want to create a space where we're all just chitter-chattering and get to knowing each other and getting confidence. So the Sail Our Way event was mapped out by getting them confident on land and then giving them experience on the water. And all of the volunteers, women and the same volunteers that come weekend after weekend, all turned up. And you know that it's a club, even though there's a lot of males sailing, you know that they want to support the club, you know that they want to support women, and it felt like that on the day. So yeah.
And I think for those who see an event like that, and for those, I mean those volunteers who come every single week, when they see an event like that, perhaps they gain a lot of energy from it as well, because all of a sudden you see these new people finally finding that community that's sailing.
100%. And I think there was that energy. We got food in, so getting a caterer in, making sure that people were fed. And I know I may bake a cake next time just to bring that extra part to the event. But it's we've one of the things that we've done is to build confidence, is to create more than a one-day event. We've created it over two Sundays, and we've also had the support of Australian Sailing. One of the big things that's helped build that confidence for the younger girls was because there's not a lot of young women sailing. Australian Sailing turned up, and that role modelling of other women has also been a really good opportunity for the event, because that gave those that haven't seen, especially my daughter being an example, haven't seen a lot of women sail on the water. That really helped the event. So having women role models on the day was just brought it up another level.
So what Mandy's talking about there, for those who don't know, Australian Sailing actually turned up with a whole bunch of female instructors and assistant instructors, a whole bunch of marketing material and flags and energy from the office ready to go, which was pretty special. And that's how we got some video too, because Meg brought went and took a whole bunch of photos and video, which was pretty special too, because you guys were all busy making sure that everyone got on the water. So it was really special. So Mandy, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Again, to anybody who's watching this, who's having a think about maybe I could run something to get more girls out on the water, or even just down to the club to go for a float in a boat. You don't have to go sailing. you could just go out and have a look and get closer to the water and break that comfort zone a little bit. There's so many different opportunities. So thank you, Mandy, for sharing your story.
Pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, next we've got Jessica Sweeney, and we're going to jump straight in with Jessica Sweeney, who currently works at the Bureau of Meteorology. She's the team lead for marine and coastal hazards. She's also had an incredible career before that. What she's doing now is pretty insane, but before that actually worked in sailing, so was able to take her science to sailing as a meteorologist involved with major sailing campaigns, which I'll let her tell you more about. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us from Perth.
Yeah, hi Nick, and hi everyone. I'm very honoured to be here. Thank you.
Oh, don't be silly. We're so honoured to have you. And I guess the first question is, I mean, how did you get into meteorology? Did you fall in love with it when you were younger, or was it something that you found later through study?
No, good question. And excuse my voice, I'm just recovering from a cold. But it
No
was
worries.
later because someone once said to me, "Oh, why don't you become a meteorologist?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds very boring. I'm not going to do that." And then, a few years later, here I am. But it was through sailing. So I've been sailing since I was a little girl. I did my undergraduate degree in mathematics and physics, and had that interest in science. Then I went sailing for a few years overseas, just wanted to let my hair out and have some fun. And thought a lot about the professional racing circuit and really wanted to get in there, and I knew my skills were in numbers. I applied for a couple of roles with America's Cup teams as a data analyst, performance analyst. But then the America's Cup was held up in the courts for a couple of years. This was after Valencia 2007. And meantime, I thought I'll do some more sailing. And then I got into navigation offshore and realised I was okay at it, but I needed to learn more about the weather. And decided, I could actually study the weather, get good at this. And I did that, and then found out this whole discipline opened up to me, and it was just fascinating. And I thought, I can do this. I can do meteorology for sailing. I can do it for other applications. It's actually interesting in its own right. So I really kind of stumbled into it, following my passion for sailing.
That's so cool. And I was going to ask you, like, was it through sailing, or was it, I guess it's sort of like a parallel love, I guess. But again, obviously coming through sailing, and I feel like we're similar ages, it's a male-dominated sport, and I'm guessing that it's quite a male-dominated industry as well, being in the sciences or the STEM area that Shev mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It traditionally has been still the case. I actually looked up the numbers at the Bureau of Meteorology about the ratio, and it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. It's roughly 2 to 1 men to women.
Pretty good.
At most levels through the professional ranks, I guess, and in middle management where I am, it's still 2 to 1. So that's pretty good compared to, say, when I was in professional sailing. So when I was in Team New Zealand, working as a meteorologist for the Volvo Ocean Race in 2011 and the San Francisco campaign in 2013, we had 100 people on the team. 3 or 4 of us were women, and I was the only technical woman. I mean, the only one kind of in a sort of a non-comms or HR kind of role. And it was tough. I really struggled. I felt like an outsider. Things improved a bit with the next America's Cup campaign I did. I was with Ben Ainslie Racing, the British team, for the Bermuda campaign. We had about 120 people in the team. About 10 were women, but a good 3 or 4 of us were in the technical side. So like meteorologist, design engineer, and performance analyst. And I felt much more comfortable in that environment. And I think since I've left the America's Cup world, I think those ratios have continued to improve. So I do see a lot of positive movement in that space. In terms of like the public service where I am now, I think the 2 to 1 ratio it's been pretty stable over time. I think the sort of what we're needing to do is get more women through the science disciplines at the university level, and we'll start seeing those numbers shift.
And that's, I guess, where it starts. It starts at the root, and it's very similar for sailing. It starts a lot of us, I know that we can find sailing later, and that is one of the most beautiful things. I've got a lot of friends that now that I've seen find sailing post kids leaving the nest type situation, which is beautiful. But a lot of us do find sailing when we're younger, and especially making sure that girls and boys see that equal playing field from when they're younger. And I see a lot of parallels with sailing and with STEM, which I think you would as well.
Yeah, that's right. I actually read the other day that it's by the age of 6 that most girls come to the conclusion that boys are more interested and more capable in science. Like the age of 6, and then that's well before any sort of selection about your your path.
You've done no tests or exams or anything at that point, and you've already made a call.
That's right. Yeah. So I've actually been reflecting a bit on the theme of this year, so balancing the scales, because even though opportunity is equal on paper, we can't get that balance until we address that sort of the underlying culture and those assumptions that are feeding into people's choices in their life.
Choices, biases, and every way that you look at it, which is why it's important for us to see things as being possible. We look at Stacey and things that are possible, because then that feeds through all the way down to the kids, most likely, because that's where the biases are being formed. So I guess that's the question for you. Like, what do you see as being the most important things for sailing or for science in terms of encouraging girls to stick with it if they're young, or maybe to choose it as a second career, or to go down that path? Because it sounds like you had a little gap before you actually went into it quite passionately, shall we say?
That's a hard question to answer.
I mean, if you can answer that question, you can solve all our problems. So feel free. But what are your thoughts in that scenario? Like, what is something that we could fix in the short term, perhaps, to encourage more people to look at STEM as an option? And when I say people, I mean women in this instance.
Yeah, I think what's come out in the research is that for girls coming through the school system to sort of really link into the STEM subjects, is they want to see the relevance of it, and they want to have a connection. They want to have a sort of a understanding, how does this help people? How does this help the world, rather than a sort of abstract concepts. I think the Sail Lab initiative is a good example, because that connects, passion of sailing with science, and shows sort of good applications of that. I think perhaps there's still some way to go in establishing the sort of the people side of connection, and I guess that's what I love about my job now, is managing marine weather for the public, for Australia. I do feel like my work does help people and help sort of public safety. So I feel very privileged to have this kind of job where I can pull all those strands together. On the sort of sailing side, encouraging women sailing, I think there's a lot of great initiatives out there, and I'm not one to propose a new idea, but what struck me during my involvement in the America's Cup, for example, is why the emphasis on the brute force? Why do you need the cyclaws, the grinders? Because that kind of excludes people with less physical strength, and perhaps that's women in many cases. But I see now the design's changing to so it's what we value. It's kind of looking at what we value. Do we value brute strength, or do we value sailing ability, strategy, tactics? And designing the boat and the competition to enable those skills to come to the front. And once they do, we'll have more balanced representation, I think, across the genders.
Yeah, ergonomic design is a big one too, like making it more friendly to, shorter humans, be they girls or be they men, or, whatever it is, making it more accessible to a larger range of sizes, which exactly what you say. If the focus was on the strategy, then the physical does change. And then you end up, having that debate about, are we curling or are we? So is it too much strategy and not enough brute strength? And I know a lot of people miss being able to see the pulling on the ropes and the grinding and those sorts of things. But there's a space and a place, and we won't solve it here, but we can definitely talk about it. Let's go back to Sail Lab while I've got you, and while there's a whole bunch of people watching. It's a pretty cool initiative connecting STEM and sailing. You don't have to talk about Sail Lab, but for those who don't know, Sail Lab is an incredible program that's been developed by Jessica Lund, who hopefully is watching, and she could answer a million questions about it. But I encourage you to go and look on the website and to have a think about whether your school or if you know somebody who wants to get involved with it. Because from your perspective, Jess, as you mentioned, if our kids fall in love with STEM and perhaps how it could help their sailing, then maybe we'll see them stick around in sailing for a little bit longer if it's connected to their strategy and the way that they view the world.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I'm in the meteorology module, for just as a spoiler alert.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's really great to be able to be involved in, and again, just provide an example of a STEM career that where you can grow your science and your sailing skills and passion together.
Absolutely. Earth science was my favourite subject at school. That's in high school, but I didn't go that way further on because I didn't think that it would be possible for me to make a career in science. So I think it's pretty incredible that you did manage to do that. And speaking of women in science, we're actually going to go on to our next speaker now. Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing your journey and for showing so many that there is a pathway in science and in sailing with science, which is pretty special. So thank you so much. Doortje Hoerst, or Dr. Doortje Hoerst, has just completed a PhD on the barriers to women participating in sailing. So she's actually going to take over for a little minute and share the findings that she has in a PowerPoint, and then we'll hear from Tash Bryant after that. So Doortje, it's over to you and the findings that you've had. And Doortje is based out of Wynnum Manly Sailing Club. We've spoken to her before, so we're pretty excited to hear about your find.
Thank you, Nick. And it's amazing to be here again. So what women value, I found that what women value most is actually having that connection to community in terms of the team itself, but also the sailing club, as well as a connection to place, to water, to weather, and to learn about those currents or wind shifts that just give us like a little bit of favorable advantage in our race. But then I also saw some challenges to these values as women really want to learn in those supportive communities. Gender team dynamics can sometimes kind of stand in the way to that. So I've seen plenty of situations, and I think women will probably also recognize this in their own sailing experiences, that sometimes women would be kind of pushed away, or their role would be taken over because someone else in the crew thinks they can do it better or quicker in a situation that is a little bit stressful. I've also seen moments where women's voices were simply not really heard. So a woman would say, oh, look, that boat has text, maybe we should tech too. And then no one really responding. And then a guy saying exactly the same thing, and suddenly that results in the boat actually tacking. And so another challenge I also found was in relation to changing environments, thinking about climate change as well as urban encroachment on the places that we sail, and how women engage with that. So basically, I would like to say here, like, let's take up these challenges and see what we can do to actually take care for the environments we sail in, but also provide these welcoming environments for women to sail in. So the club actually has quite a big role to play already. So if we think about new people coming to the sailing club, their first point of contact will be the club, right? Whether that is race officials, organizing the race that they may get in contact with first, or maybe probably the sailing club office. And so it's that first point of contact already. This one previously. That first point of contact where you kind of already give that first impression of the club. So it's important to make that a welcoming thing. Then secondly, what happens with social yacht racing with the Seal Pass, which I think was a really great initiative, is that people would call and be like, okay, I would like to sail. And then the sailing, like the office would then try and find a spot for someone on a boat. And the experience or the things that I've seen is like they'll, like, where there is a spot, they'll put the person. And so my encouragement here would actually be really try to step into a role of a matchmaker. The belonging is really in relation to the crew first, and I think for most people to the sailing club second. And so it's really important to create that match between a new person coming into the club and a team they're going to sail with. So ask about, like, okay, so what would you like? Like, what kind of sailing experience would you like? There's a really beautiful, I think, diversity in sailing teams in those sailing clubs. Often you have, I don't know, 10 to 20 boats racing in those races, and they're all different, right? The boats are different, the people are different. They've got different cultures going on those boats. And as Mandy actually also said, like, there is diversity in what people want in sailing as well. Some are really competitive. Some would rather, you know, as soon as they go downwind, have a have a glass of wine and bring out the cheese. And there is those boats all sail, right? So make those matches. And then support and value the teams that really welcome those new people as well as a club. Then in terms of like how skippers and crews can actually, they play a really big role in welcoming new people as well. So providing, like, bringing people along when they're new to sailing is really important. Explain that if someone says, I'm going to tack, that they actually need to go to the other side of the boat, you know, and that all those things really help. Or explain how a toilet actually works on a boat, especially for women, is quite important to know. And I've seen all these things happen already on boats, which is really good. And so really, like, putting that effort in really welcoming new people to a team. They might be new to sailing, they might be only just new to the club, and give them that community. A form I've seen happening is like people, like sailing teams having group chats. And I think one of the best examples I experienced also was a team who always just put new people into the group chat as soon as they came for the first time on their boat. And it makes you feel like you're part of something, and you will always get an opportunity to sail, and you're not relying on the sailing office to find you a spot. There's like this direct entry, and it's really important. Team shirts, some boats are really big on team shirts. Like, have a couple of spare ones so that if someone comes on new on your boat, you can actually give them a shirt and they'll be part of the team immediately. Of course, there's also a possibility that actually it's just not a really great fit, right? This can happen. Like I said, everyone is like a bit different, is different, teams are different. And then so try to think, because people are really well networked within clubs, think what team could actually maybe be a better fit. And like, think about that, maybe connect them with another crew, another skipper, another boat. It could actually work better for them. And then another important thing I realized was, and I loved actually, that is putting learning, like prioritizing learning over performance. And what I loved seeing just in Stacey, like the video that played before Stacey's, was the woman who said, we've learned a lot. She said that first. And then she said, and we've gone around the planet, right? And so learning is so important. And we love, you know, performing well. We also love going around the planet or winning. But often that comes second to having the opportunity to learn. And so really And that comes with, and I think, skippers have quite a big responsibility here in providing that learning environment. So lots of women had also lots of good stories about skippers who really provided that learning environment, who protected learning spaces, who would say to crew if they, boarded on stepping in, like, no, it's all right, it's fine, let her do it. To have clear communication. I saw that a lot in the women's races, actually, like really bringing everyone along, making sure that everyone who has a certain role actually gets the opportunity to understand what they're going to do so that they can be part of the thing that part of the team and contribute equally. And I think what's important here is that skippers actually provide a lot of not only physical safety. I think lots of skippers are very aware that they need to provide physical safety. They're trying to prevent any injuries, no men overboards, people overboards. But there is a real responsibility also for skippers to provide social safety on their boats, to make sure there is a welcoming environment, to intervene, like being active, to be active in potentially intervening if you do see something that isn't constructive or doesn't help in that supportive environment. And I just put no yelling there just because I think we all know we shouldn't. And whenever I saw it and it happens, it always creates tension. And so trying to really prevent like those kind of situations that lead to yelling is actually really helpful in providing those safe spaces. And so the last thing I wanted to say is we are working on changing a culture, right? And this is something that's actually quite difficult. It's a slow process. There are old habits that exist, and which means people are going to make mistakes, like do something they maybe shouldn't do. So create a safe place where you actually can bring up points of tension, where people experience that tension, can go, oh, actually, that was not great, but you just did, and then provide a safe space by being ready to apologize. Say, I'm sorry, I did that. I didn't mean to, and I'm sorry. And then work also on the criticism, right? It's not just an apology, it's actually working to try to prevent it next time. And then also from the other side, to really practice kindness and give space for people to work on these changes as well. So that kindness and generosity really goes both ways as well. So yeah, that's what I had for now. I'm looking forward to all the questions. Also, feel free to email me if you would like a copy of the thesis or a publication. I've got my email address in there, so happy to share. Yeah, looking forward to questions.
Thank you so much, Doortje. We will definitely have questions for you at the end. We're going to have a group Q&A with everybody, but I think the yelling point that you made is something that a lot of people watching will probably attach to as well, and something that I try to tell women or people who are coaching women is, to explain to them what's happening in the first place, and then you won't have to yell instructions anyway, because they'll understand what's happening. So, and that goes back to right at the start, what you were talking about, which was explain it step by step, and don't have that level of assumed knowledge. And then, and that seems to help well when you're teaching men or women, which is something pretty special. So thank you so much for sharing your findings. And we're going to head on to our last speaker now, last but not least, Tash Bryant. We're going to watch a little video that I put together from the win in New Zealand. The Flying Roos took the win in Auckland, which wasn't really at the forefront of the news given everything else that went on in New Zealand, and had a tough event in Sydney. But we'll talk to Tash in just a minute after this video.
Quite windy? Very windy. Okay. Standby, Jay, no, standby.
Okay, all on here.
Nice, there you go. And this is... Turning.
Well,
Have you going to go right? Go, where is that? Down.
hey, they're inside us.
There, yeah.
They're setting up. Okay, on their line here.
Hey, roll. hard. I'm always on the edge through here. Copy.
We're not racing anyone foiling.
Looks like some near the island, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
And you can see there that Tash is sometimes right at the front of the boat on the pumps. And in Sydney, that was where we saw most of the female tacticians getting their grind on, given the conditions in Sydney were not what we would expect for summer, but it did cross over into autumn. So I'm sure we'll have Tash on the screen any tick of the clock. There she is, and we'll run through everything that's happened. So I guess we'll just get it out of the way first, Tash. Sydney was a really tough event for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit disappointing, and I think it's taken all of us a few days to kind of get over it a bit.
I'm glad we're talking today and not on Tuesday, because that may not have worked very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tricky weather on Sunday, and I mean, luck of the draw a little bit, but it's okay.
I think I was talking to Slingsby's lovely wife, Elle, and I've sailed a nationals in that exact same spot before, with Shark Island in play, except I didn't have super yachts surrounding me. I didn't have 27-meter wings creating turbulence, and I didn't have to fit to a broadcast window, or mind you, the race officer didn't. So it wasn't quite as diabolical. It looked incredibly tricky, and it was one of those days that I was quite happy to be couch sailing, as one would say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Nick.
Indeed. You did have some beautiful moments though, and in Auckland you sailed incredibly well, and you're currently sitting second on the leaderboard. But here, when we're talking about International Women's Day, you're one of the few women that gets to sail at the highest level of our sport every other week, essentially, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's incredibly cool, and it's kind of been a pinch me moment for the last few years, really. I guess when I started watching SailGP and watching the America's Cup boats, I definitely didn't see it as a career path for myself, or just women in general. And so as it's grown over the last few years, it's really cool to see how, I guess, much more inclusive it's become. And yeah, it's really exciting to see where it's going to go in the future.
I guess the bottom of the sport has become more inclusive too. I mean, we now see Martina on the helm with the Brazilian team, but not too much else has really changed in the past few seasons with SailGP. I mean, when are we going to see another female on the helm, or multiple women on a boat?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I have no doubt that it's going to start to become much more normal over the next couple of years. I think what SailGP did with just, I guess, bringing the quota in the first place, as controversial as it was and as tricky as it was at the start to kind of solidify your place on board the yacht in the first place, it's grown so much since then. And over the last couple of years, my role even has changed since when I started jumping on the boat in the first place, not really knowing where my place was. It was really tricky because they created this whole role for us, and everyone took it on board differently. So it was really tricky to come across and go, yeah, like we're meant to be here. It was kind of built for us at the start, but now if you talk to anyone around the boat park, anyone sailing, they wouldn't want to race with less than 6 people. And as soon as you're asked to take someone off, it's a nightmare, and it's a huge discussion of where do you go. And it used to be that we'd take someone off the front and immediately step forward, but now that's the last thing we want to do. And in Sydney, you saw that there was we had to sail 5 up on the Sunday for a few races, and you would have seen different configurations with people at the front, or female sailors at the front and at the back of the boat. And it really just shows that, okay, yeah, the strategist role was created a couple of years ago. It was brought onto the boat to fill a quota at the start, but now it's so much more than that. It's really cool to see how much it's grown and to see how valued it's become in the industry.
Definitely. And I fully support the quota too, because even if you think of it in a corporate world way, if a guy's got a really important job to fill, they're going to use somebody that they know and have worked with in an intense environment previously. And that's why we saw guys always giving guys jobs, But then when a female is able to break in as such, or there was a quota, all of a sudden you're in a situation where they're not going to not sail with you. So
Yeah.
you've sort of broken into this mold. And so I guess that's where it's like, do we need to make it compulsory for another girl now? Or will we start to see more boats sailing with more girls?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. And to be honest, I think it's going to take a few years to get there. But ultimately, my ideal world would be obviously no quotas and just earning your place out of your experience and knowledge and being able to do the role better than anyone else out there. And it's interesting the way people are talking about the strategist role, or even any role on board the AC50s or the F50s, or any of the America's Cup boats. The boats are so hard to sail. Every single role on board that boat is difficult. They're all really, really different, and you need quite a range of skill sets to do whatever job you're employed to do. And so everyone is out there trying to be the best in the world at that job, no matter your gender. And I think if that attitude just keeps going, and more women are getting experience in whatever role they feel like they are strong at, personally, for me, I think a strategist or a tactician's role is perfect for me. I've come from helming skiffs. I've come from driving boats. Yeah. And I feel comfortable holding the wheel if I need to. I feel comfortable making cross calls at 100 k's an hour sometimes. That's something that I've grown to love, and I think that I really like doing that, and I can see this as being a strategist or even a tactician as a long-term pathway for me. Initially, I didn't really know what it involved, and so it was tricky to sit there and say that I was happy with it. But now, a couple of years in, and I really, really love the role, and sailing on board the Australian boat, I can't see any other place I'd like to be other than that. And one day, maybe I'd like to drive the boat, but I feel like I have so much more to give in the position I'm in at the moment. And I think there's actually a lot of sailors out there, if you ask that question, a lot of female sailors around would feel that way. Some would feel other ways, with different teams doing different things. With the Americans, with Anna Weiss on the handles, the Italians quite often put Julia further forward. There's all different, everyone has their different strengths, and we're really just trying to play to them at the moment. And yeah, as the league grows, female sailors are going to be some of the most experienced sailors around to be brought into new roles on board the boats that are coming out in the next few years. So yeah, it's been tricky. It's been tricky the last couple of years, kind of learning your place and learning where you think you're strong. But as it changes and as it grows, we're going to be the ones with the experience that are going to be called on, and I think it's going to change quite a bit very soon.
And going back to what you said before, if we're all just being measured as equals and everyone just gets to go sailing on their talent and their ability, then we won't need an International Women's Day anymore, and we will have achieved our goal. So we're all looking forward to that moment in time. But I'm not sure we're there yet, but I know that we are moving closer towards it because of things like quotas and because of things like SailGP. I mean, for you, what's the significance of being, at that highest level, and for little girls to be able to go, oh my gosh, there's a girl on board, and and there's an ability, and there's a pathway there that didn't exist before this, essentially. I mean, we've had Stacey on the start of this call, and what she's done is incredible with the Jules Verne, but that was 20 years on, and now we've already had Perth, Auckland and Sydney this year, where little girls or 20-year-olds or 40-year-olds or 50-year-olds with kids have been able to go, hey, it is actually possible. You could actually be a professional sailor.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty special. Like I said at the start, it's just clicking a bit for me, actually. I still want to pinch myself every day. Every day I get to sail those boats. They're so incredible. And I get to sail with some absolutely amazing sailors. And so, yeah, it is really, really cool. But what I think I'm most excited about is, we've had to have quotas. We've had to introduce the Women's America's Cup to have a whole nother league for women sailors. But I'm excited for the next few years, especially with the Cup having, yet another quota, but no role specification. And also every role on board those 75s is going to involve sitting down, pressing buttons, or holding a wheel, or holding and looking at a screen and pressing pressing screens. So nothing is too physical for women. So it'll be really cool to see how those boats adapt and what teams decide to do, and to see what the Hannah Mills of the world will do, whether they'll be at the helm or they'll be doing something else. So it'll be really cool to see. And I think, yeah, the next few years is going to be a really exciting time for women in the sport, because with SailGP, being given this opportunity, it's been 4 years now since I stepped on board an F50 for the first time, which it doesn't feel like a long time at all.
It doesn't feel like that long.
When you look at the scheme of things, I have 4 years of experience, and when I jumped on board at the start, the guys ahead of me had 10 years of experience, so I'm almost halfway there. Yeah, maybe not done the exact amount of time, but it's really cool to see. And I wasn't the first. Like, Nina did a whole year before me, so that's 5 years ago now. It's pretty incredible to see, and yeah, I can't imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years' time, and where we'll all be at.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into what I wanted to ask you next, which is, you know, what is the pinnacle? What is the pinnacle looking like? Do you think it's SailGP having more women on board? Is it having an all-female team? I know a lot of people talk about we need an all-female team. I'm not sure if I'm with an all-female team. I like mixed sailing, and because I think that's where we need to get to, right, is mixed. But is it having more girls on board of an America's Cup team, or is it that pinnacle that we were talking about where, you know, girls and boys don't matter, the sexes don't matter, and we just all go sailing? But I feel like that might be 15 or 20 years down the track. I hope it's not. I hope it's 5 years down the track, but that's not realistic.
I think in my ideal world, it looks something along those lines of not having to have a quota, female sailors having equal amount of experience and opportunities as male sailors, and being able to be selected on board those boats and those leagues because you are the best possible option for that. And so I do believe it'll come hopefully sooner than 10, 15 years. I think with the roles on board the boats changing quite a bit, there's some roles that will obviously, like the grinding roles are obviously a little bit harder for those like you and me, a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller than others around us. But Anna is proving everyone wrong, and doing an amazing job to keep up and kind of trailblaze in that front. And so, yes, I think there'll be roles for everyone. And obviously it's just closing the experience gap. And I think the bigger the league grows, the more people that are going to be involved, the bigger the America's Cup gets, the bigger the Women's America's Cup gets, because that was an incredible thing for me to do a couple of years ago. I came out of that campaign with so much more confidence sailing boats around, doing 35 plus knots every single day for 6-7 months. It fills you with confidence, and you can kind of charge into the next challenge head on. And and having more opportunities for women out there, it's definitely closing the gap way quicker than we were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, totally. And I think at that point we're going to leave you, because we're going to go to questions, because I know that we've probably got a whole stack of questions, and if we don't, I've got more questions of everybody too, because now thinking about that, and thank you, Tash, so much. Sue will start to bring everybody up onto the screen, but I was just thinking about quotas, and I think Stacey might still be on the line because her flight got a little bit delayed, and Stacey actually won the Admiral's Cup last year with Jules, and there was a quota involved there as well. I mean, Stacey, that I think changed things in a big way in terms of that level of yacht racing, because I think even some of the guys didn't know how much experience you'd had when you got on board for the first time, until they realised you'd done a few Volvos/ocean races.
Yeah, I think that was a great move. And once again, my mate Dee Kafari had a lot to do with that. She put it to rock.
As she always does.
Yeah, right. Her flag's pretty big and she flies it pretty hard. But she put that forward to Rourke, who were organising the Admiral's Cup, and said, let's make the quota. And look, like Tash said, I'm a big believer in quotas, because until the change is happening willingly, you need to, and like Tash said, you have to be able to have the experience for that to happen without a quota, but you can't get the experience if you can't get there. So, it is that, it's a chicken and egg scenario. So what was really nice about the Admiral's Cup was that every team had to have a female sailor on every boat, both boats in their team. So there's 15 teams in the Admiral's Cup. So there's 30 additional female sailors in that regatta. And a lot of boats had more than one female sailor on board. And that for me is when that quota is working, you'll see more than one person, sorry, one female sailor.
Yeah.
But the best outcome from it was, say, Callisto, one of the teams from New Zealand. He met his female sailor, the owner of the boat met the female sailor, and he's now invited her, and she did the Sydney to Hobart on his other boat. And for me, that's the quota working. And he got introduced. He isn't forced to take her to Hobart. He met her, saw her skill, and she's now just part of the team.
She's totally part of the team. I sailed with them one day before the Hobart. They also have another girl that they've invited to be part of the crew following her involvement with the Admiral's Cup, and they've adopted her. And then she ended up doing a whole bunch of deliveries with Sharon Ferris-Choate and is now doing a bunch of racing with her. And they've got another girl that is their shore crew lead. So they've actually got 3 girls involved with the Callisto program off the back of the Admiral's Cup, which is pretty epic. And she's an integral member. Like they're not ever docking off without her. So that's totally a win. And like you say, that's 30 more women now that can be relied on, who then can also vouch for other women. And I think that's a big part of it as well, is going, this girl's really good. This girl's really good. You can rely on this person, because, as I mentioned, when Tash, who has to go very, very soon, when you broke into that circle of guys that had sailed together on that boat in Bermuda, essentially, because for those who don't know, essentially Oracle Team USA that sailed together in Bermuda is the Australian SailGP team. I mean, Kyle's now moved on, but that's the unit. Nina first broke in, and then Tash broke in, and I think Tom Slingsy's only sailed with the 2 of you and maybe Ben Lamb, and Lucy, and the 16 foot. And you know that's a very few females that he's actually sailed with at that level. So what was it like breaking into that little, that little unit?
Yeah, I mean, I watched them race in San Francisco and Bermuda like many years before, and when I was in primary school, I think, and that was the first first America's Cups I watched and remembered. And so it was pretty incredible. They're idols in the sailing world. They're absolutely amazing sailors, and I'm extremely lucky because they're amazing humans too off the water. They took me in, taught me so much, and every day I get to sail with them, I come back learning something new. So it's really incredible, and I know I'm extremely lucky because talking to some of the other athletes around the circuit or in different teams don't have the same experience as I did. I mean, our team is tough. Everyone really, we all want to win. We want to be the best, and I joined the team for the season they won their 3rd championship, so it was coming in at the top level, high expectations, and so kind of having some thick skin at the start, trying to learn, and being okay with making a couple of small mistakes, but trying not to repeat them. It was definitely quite stressful, but yeah, the guys are incredible, and I'm so lucky, and I can't thank them enough for how much they've helped me in my career. And they're so encouraging. It's really cool to see, and they're all dads now. I met a few of them before they became dads, and a couple of them have daughters, and they definitely took me under their wing like that. And so yeah, it's really cool to see, and I think having allies like that out there in the sailing world, I only positive things coming.
Yeah, and it's interesting how things can change when they've suddenly realised that the girls that are under their own houses might have it a little bit tough too, which is super interesting. But Tash, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you have to go, and I know there'll be a lot of people that are watching that are cheering, or who are officially part of the Roo crew and will be cheering on the Flying Roos come the next event, come Brazil. So good luck in Brazil. And
thank you so much, and
thank you very much
for all the support, guys.
It's all good. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye, Tash. And speaking of support, I know, Mandy, you mentioned the support that Australian Sailing gave you for your beautiful event that happened in Cairn Curran. You mentioned that you've got another weekend coming up, though. When is that going to be? And how significant was it having like 2 weekends rather than like one big event? Because we do know that everyone's a little bit time poor these days.
Yeah, great question. And first off, I think I found all of my mentors just on this call, so that's a separate
It's like that, isn't it? Zoom with your mentors.
But I think the reason why we went with embedding it into, encouraging women is because when it's a one-off, depending on the weather or depending on whatever happens on the day, I think with sailing, especially that it's a regional club, it takes an hour to get to for some people. For me, it's a 50-minute drive. So we didn't just want to make this a tick box event. We wanted women to feel safe and encourage them to come again, and just to see that, the first time was all new. And there was 21 young girls and women that turned up, one dad that helped support his 9-year-old, and two and just lots of young children. But I think the 21 women and girls that turned up have all put their hand up again and said, we definitely want to come back again. And we put some feedback out there, and they said, yeah, we definitely want more time on the water. And the feedback from Australian Sailing, which is really encouraging and was an absolute win, they said, I don't think you need an experienced sailor on the water. It was a very calm day and quiet winds, but, I think you can be empowered to just get out there and have a go on your own. We've got enough crew to support them. The volunteers just encourage that as well. So, yeah, 2 days will help then maybe get them to the club for the next season and turn up. And that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sense of belonging that Doortje spoke about. I mean, I think, I'm not sure about you guys, but even Tash mentioned it, feeling like you're part of that unit and how much people have looked after you. And I know that watching the Famous Project, looking how close those women got over that group, and I know how much you've bonded, Stacey, with people like Dee that you've gone around the world with. And I know we'll all have friends in sailing that will be family for the rest of our lives. And even just that small bit of learning, Doortje, that you mentioned about, if they can feel like they're belonging and part of a crew when these women first try the sport, then we potentially will have them for life. And it sounds like I'm making them join a cult, but it's actually just getting them involved with our incredible sport, which we know gives back so much as well. Yeah, so
well,
Doortje,
Nick,
I mean, yeah.
Nick,
sorry,
it's a good point you made. We started together 20 years ago. I hate to mention that.
Exactly. Yeah. Stacey and I and Katie and Nina, we all sailed together 20 years ago now, when you think about it, and we're all still friends. So, yeah, friends for life, which is pretty special. Hence me being a official stalker now. I know where you are at the airport. But Doortje, in your research, that belonging, it's inherent from the beginning, I think, when someone even just steps onto a boat almost.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think in like these sort of social races, I think people also have different levels to which like they really want to belong. Like some people are happy to just, come to the boat, have that afternoon with those people, and like not have like it's kind of like an occasional community they see, but they still really enjoy. And for other people really mention it too as like their family, and they take care for each other also when people are maybe not able to sail for a while, to still like check in with each other and have that sort of care community within that sailing team that extends beyond the boat. But it's not for everyone the case. So also for like the people watching and listening who are like, well, I don't need any of that. Like that's not a prerequisite for joining a team in social yacht sailing. Like it can be really low key and just an occasional community or friendship for like the time while you're on the boat, and that's also okay. Yeah,
totally. And hey, I know a lot of sailors that are introverted, and people may not believe it, but I'm more introverted than I seem. I'm very comfortable in my sailing community, and that's where I feel at home. So it can be that way as well. And I think Jess, I mean, your ins and outs with being in science and then being in the sport and then being in the sport with science. I mean, you've probably experienced this in many different ways in terms of the belonging that you've had in the sport, the belonging that you've had in the crossover, the belonging that you've had at work. And I guess you've got to take your work home with you sometimes too, which is fun. And you probably can't help it either. I mean, how many sailors actually call on you to say, Jess, what's going to happen this
actually,
weekend?
and I've had to kind of stop my private forecasting on the side because it's a conflict of interest. If I'm issuing the official Australian forecast. But you talk about belonging, and it's been interesting working, in the professional sailing teams where there's this really intense team feeling, and you're just working so tightly with everybody. You got the single focus on making the boat go fast, and being able to step from that into, say, a government agency where your timeframes are not 16-minute races, they're 5-year deliverables, with 500 people. So it's just, that's another sense of, another sort of team culture and atmosphere, but just being able to sort of thread your similar kind of interests through both of them, I feel means I can bring both kind of perspectives and strengths to each. So when I'm at work, I'm saying, oh, we need to improve the marine products because when I was on the water, I saw this, and I think we can do better as an organisation. And then when I'm on the water, I say, oh, well, I know how the forecast works. So, let's sail to the left or, whatever it might be.
Insider feedback. I love it.
Yeah. So, there's the, the belonging you can feel on a boat or in sailing can help you elsewhere, and I think totally. Strengths we can all carry forward in our various endeavours.
And I think that's a lovely point to end on, and we're so lucky in this balancing the scales chat. I think the belonging factor will help us balance the scales as well, because if females feel more welcome, then they're more likely to stick around and be diehards like many of us on this call. But also to touch and go and to know that they're welcome in the sport for as long as they want. Whoever is watching, you're welcome to interact with sailing however you wish. You can be competitive, you can be a social sailor, that's the beauty of sailing. There's so many different varieties. My sister, I've got 2 younger sisters, one doesn't sail at all, and that's fine, but the middle one, she will only sail if she's got a glass of champagne in her hand, and I totally appreciate that. I wish I could be like that. So it's such a beautiful sport, and we've managed to hear from Mandy on so much that's happening in the regional space, and I encourage you all to pop in your Sail Our Way grant. Jess, it was lovely to hear your pathway journey as well, and I do encourage everyone to have a look at Sail Lab too. If you haven't seen everything that happened with the Famous Project, you have to chase up Stacey Jackson's adventures. It was incredibly epic, and I'm also hanging out for the next Admiral's Cup because who knows how many women will be involved, probably without a quota, which would be exciting. And Doortje obviously has her research available too for anybody who's interested. That's it from me. Enjoy International Women's Day wherever you might be. If you do have an event that's happening at your club or wherever in Australia, please send us images and let us know, because we'd love to share some content on the SheSails channels to show what everybody's doing for International Women's Day. You can also email us at training@sailing.org.au or head to shesails.org.au if you want to learn more about that Sail Our Way grant that we mentioned, and round 2 is open now. Thanks everybody, and thanks to all who are watching, and thanks to all of the men who are supporting women, and to all the women who are supporting women, because if we support each other, I think what we can achieve is endless. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Nick.